Fine. So in today's session, we'll talk about the security, how it can be managed in the Fusion applications. So you can call it as role-based access control. We call as RBAC. So do you think we have RBAC, role-based access control, future in EBS? Anyone, please? Anyone?
No, I think we have responsibilities in EBS rather than roles.
Yeah, in EBS primarily we will have a access to anything for user through responsibility. Apart from that, even we use the roles concept also if the application is web application, or even in our finance also, if you refer EBS R12, when you create the bank account, we will give the some rules, will provision some grants to legal entity to act as a bank account owner. Okay. See, my request is just don't unmute. Okay, if you have any question, you can just unmute and you can ask the question. Otherwise, when we are discussing any topic, don't please unmute from your end. We will be getting some background noise from your end. Okay, please. Fine. So in EBS, mostly like every user will have access to specific application functionality or process through responsibility. Apart from that, you can provision certain privileges or access to the user through roles also, especially the applications which we consider as a web applications. So you take example of AME. If you are setting the approvals, we'll be providing some roles to that user to get some privileges to have access to specific configuration or process. So we have a roles concept in EBS also, but it's limited to just web applications. Now in the Fusion, everything, the complete show will be running through web applications only. There is no forms within the Fusion applications. So now there is no responsibility concept in the Fusion. So for everything we'll be using the roles only. With the help of roles only, users can have access to anything. It could be setup related. Uh, if user wants to do some setups, we have to give the relevant role to that user. If user wants to work on some transaction process, okay, business process, it could be P2P or O2C or specific payables, or within the payables it may be invoice or payment creation or anything. So for application related any functionality or future, okay, we can give the privileges to the user with the help of roles. Okay, so role is the object.
So just one quick question,
access to anything. Yeah, please.
One quick question regarding the role-based access.
Yeah.
These roles actually, with a given role, you can define which particular page a user is supposed to view, right?
Exactly. What function, for what function you need access, accordingly you can assign the roles to user.
Okay, if I understand very well, like for example, if you look at the editors application,
just we started talking about it. There are few points which I have to address. We'll talk on that after those points. If you think you are not, you don't get
perfect.
what you are expecting, definitely we can talk on that. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Fine. Thanks. Okay, in Fusion, whatever the security model which we use, that we call as RBAC, role-based access control. Okay, so it's all about, we call as Fusion security. Fusion security handled with the RBAC only. So now we'll compare this RBAC with our EBS. So we create responsibility, right? Fine, that we'll see later. When you talk about EBS, so we have a concept called as menu, right? EBS, we have a concept called as menu. Within the menu, what we can find? Submenus. Within the main menu, you can find submenus. Within the submenus, we can find the functions. And if you want to have access to specific menu, what we have to do in EBS? Anyone, please? These are just well-known points for us, but let me put as a questions. So in EBS, say
Go to
for
visitor.
example, we have menu for GL called as GL super user. So I need access to GL super user. I want to have access to the complete GL functionality. What we have to do?
We need to create a
Find
responsibility
the
to give access for the menu.
Sorry?
Create a user responsibility and then assign this menu to it.
Create responsibility, because we cannot assign menu to user directly, right? We can allow the user to have access to any menu through responsibility only. That is the reason we have to create responsibility. Okay, we'll create responsibility. Can we assign that okay, we can assign that responsibility to user, but what else we have to assign to responsibility when I talk about GL?
Profile option.
Yeah,
Well,
it
option.
is a
Yes.
GL responsibility. We have to assign
Request group.
ledger to responsibility. I'm not talking while you are creating responsibility. Say responsibility will create by selecting menu, data group, request group anyway optional. Okay, we create GL responsibility. To GL responsibility, we can assign the primary ledger. If it is, since it's a GL, finally this responsibility we assign to user, right? If you have responsibility without ledger mapping, primary ledger mapping, you cannot use it. Okay, just you can have access to those the functional pages, functional forms, but you cannot perform any transaction. So you should have a responsibility. If it is GL responsibility, you should assign primary ledger, and that responsibility you have to assign to user, so that that user can have access to that responsibility, whatever the primary ledger is associated. With the help of that primary ledger, or within that primary ledger, user can record the transactions, say journals. Now without primary ledger assignment, there is no use of responsibility. Now the same concept will compare with Fusion, how this will work in the Fusion application. So in EBS for each application, Oracle is providing the seeded menu, right? For each application, Oracle is providing the seeded menu. As per business requirement, generally we create many custom menus. The same logic how it works in the fusion. So in the fusion applications, okay, equal to menu, we have a concept called as job roles. So fusion job role is equal to EBS menu, main menu. And in EBS, within the menu, you can have one or multiple submenus. Equal to submenus, in fusion we have duty roles. In EBS, we have a submenus concept. Okay, the submenus, okay, the submenu equal to submenu in fusion, we have a duty roles. Within the submenu, we'll have a functions. In EBS, here also we'll have a functions only. You may call it as privileges. Okay, so we'll have that doesn't comes under role and all here. Okay, that's the reason I'm not listing. So equal to functions. In fusion, we call as privileges. Now in EBS, can we assign, okay, can we assign menu to user? Can we assign menu directly to user? We cannot assign. we cannot assign menu to user, but in the Fusion you can assign the role. You can assign role. Which role? Job role. You can assign, okay, job role to user. Job role you can assign to user. This would be equal to assigning menu to user in EBS. We cannot, but you cannot do it. Okay, menu you cannot assign to user, but if there is any possibility, this would be equal to that. So menu you cannot assign to user. That is reason to select specific menu we create responsibility. Without responsibility concept, okay, you cannot connect any menu. You cannot give access to any user for specific menu, which will be including within the responsibility. But in the Fusion, equal to menus, we have a job roles. Job role you can assign to user. Okay, so since we have option of assigning the job roles to user, we don't use any responsibility concept. Even in Fusion also, if there is no option of assigning the job roles to user, we have to create responsibility. We have to select job role into responsibility. That responsibility we can assign to user, but here it's not required. Directly you can assign job roles to user, but in EBS menus you cannot assign directly to user. And here what we are doing, we are assigning the primary ledger to GL responsibility. Here instead of using the responsibility directly, we are assigning the job role to user. So in the same way here you can assign primary ledger to job role. This is equal to this. So here in EBS the primary ledger we assign to responsibility. If it is GL responsibility, primary ledger. If it is the subledger applications, along with the primary ledger we assign operating unit also, right? This will assign to user. So in EBS primary ledger we assign to responsibility, responsibility assigned to user. What we have inside of the responsibility? Menu only. Equal to menu what we have in the Fusion? Job role. Now here directly job role we are assigning to user. So primary ledger we assign to job roles. Job role will assign to user, so that user can connect to job role. Job role consists of duty roles and certain privileges. So with those privileges user can record the transactions in specific primary ledger. If it is subledger related application, so we'll assign the business unit. In Fusion operating unit we call as a business unit. Going forward we'll discuss those very detailed level. The EBS multi-org structure how we have in the Fusion. Okay, in Fusion we call as enterprise structure. The relevant points we'll discuss. For now just let's try to understand these points. Okay, so this is how just we'll be creating. Fine. So if you are going to assign the primary ledger to job role, that we call as data role in Fusion. Data role means job role plus your primary ledger. If it is going to be the job role is belongs to payables or receivables, that is your BU, business unit. Okay, EBS OU. In EBS operating unit in Fusion we call as BU. BU stands for business unit. Data role means job role plus primary ledger. If it is just GL, if it's going to be subledger application, job role plus primary ledger and your business unit. So that means we map primary ledger or business unit to specific job role that we call as data role. Finally this data role will assign to user, which would be equal to this task in EBS. Okay, and apart from that we have other role type called as abstract roles. Okay, this I'll take here. This is just for our understanding. So the final point here is we have 4 type of roles in Fusion application. We have 4 type of roles. So everything will be managed in the Fusion applications with the roles concept. The roles are classified into 4 types. job roles, duty roles, data roles, and abstract roles. So job role means, the best example for job role, if you take payables, say payables manager or payables supervisor or payables specialist, you can treat it as a job role. Duty role, say invoice creation, you can call as one duty role, and supplier creation you may call as one duty role, and payment creation you may call as one duty role, invoice inquiry you may call as one duty role. That's how, just so within the job role you can have multiple duty roles, so as per EBS submenus. And data role, so you have a payables manager. So for this role you want to give the access to which business unit access, so you have to assign the business unit to payables manager, so that with the payables manager role will be able to create the transaction for specific business unit. I'll take the same here. So payables manager, to that we have to assign BU, business unit. So within the BU, for the BU, primary ledger mapping also will be there inside of the definition. So primary ledger will be mapped with BU. BU will be assigned to specific job role. Okay, this combination for primary ledger will give the BU access. Okay, this we call as a data role. That means the role, which role? Payables manager role has access to which data? Specific BU data. Will assign specific BU. So data role means the role will have access to specific data. Here data means that could be BU data or primary ledger data. That means the role will help us to create the data, means transactions. Here data means transaction. Transaction should belongs to specific BU or primary ledger. When you talk about finance, when you talk about SCM, the transaction should belongs to specific inventory organization. Okay, your finance point of view, your data role means the role which will be connected to specific BU and or primary ledger, that we call as a, or it could be for budget or some intercompany related organization. Okay, so that is a point we have to understand. Okay, job role is, best example is payables manager or else receivables manager or payable supervisor or receivable supervisor or specialist. And duty role is, and when I talk about payables, invoice creation duty or payment creation or invoice inquiry. When I talk about receivables, it can be just billing or receipt, or it could be customer payment. You know, many submenus you can have in EBS within the main menu. The same can be just correlated with these points. And data role means you take any job role, to the job role we'll assign BU if the job role is belongs to subledger application. If the job role is related to just GL, we assign primary ledger to that job role. That combination only, that mapping only we call as data role. Through that role we will be able to create the transaction, so that we will be able to generate the data within the system, so that we call as data role. So abstract role, see these roles. And one more point, we cannot assign business unit or primary ledger to duty role. Okay, so we cannot assign in EBS also. If you want to create some custom menu, we have to create the first menu. Within the menu you can take the specific submenu that will be able to assign to responsibility. Okay, directly by navigating to GL super user, you can query GL super user menu. Within that you can find many submenus. The submenus you cannot select into GL responsibility, right? You have to copy the specific submenu. Against that you have to create the menu. That menu only you can assign to responsibility. The same way you cannot assign business unit or primary ledger to duty roles. So if you want to give access to specific duty role, against the duty role you have to create the job role. Okay, say we have a duty role called as invoice creation. Now we have to create job role called as invoice creation job role. Within that we will include the invoice creation duty role. Finally that you can, to that job role we can assign business unit and a primary ledger. Okay, that means these job roles, duty roles, and data roles are specific to application. For payables, GL, okay, AP, yeah, different. Each and every application we can have a separate job roles, duty roles, and data roles. But when it comes to abstract roles are common roles. Okay, so for abstract roles, the best example is employee. Employee role is treated as a abstract role, which is required for every user to have access to some common privileges. Okay, for every user we assign role called as abstract role, that is nothing but employee role. Employee role we assign to every user so that the employee will have access to running the reports. In EBS we have a SRS window. Okay, from every responsibility you can have access to SRS window. Within that responsibility, if you have a request group, then you will be able to run the reports or programs. Otherwise, at least you can go to SRS window. But in the Fusion, if you assign abstract role to any user, then only that user can have access to similar page. Okay, we'll see that retail level. And apart from that, for what are the other areas employee user required access when they are working on the organization, may be related to their personal information or payroll information, downloading the payslip, the other privileges every user required for certain areas of data access, that common, okay, data access can be given to any user with the help of abstract role. The best example is employee. Okay, these are the 4 type of roles we have. And any questions here, please?
Lakshman, this is Guru.
Yep.
This is regarding the job role. So in this example, you have taken like a payable manager which is associated to a single OU. So that association only for a single OU, or we can have multi-op concept
Let's
also?
use the term as BU. Okay.
Yeah, BU, okay.
Yep.
So it is just for a single OU, or we can have multi-op concept here?
No, see, you have a 10 BUs. Okay. So 10 BUs you can assign to payables manager. The combination will be different. So you select role called as payables manager. Okay, and you'll assign BU1. Done. And for other user require access to BU2, select payables manager and assign BU2. This role you will be assigning to maybe user 1 who need access to BU1. Other one you will assign.
So we are going back. So we are going back to the 11I concept where there is no a single user, a single responsibility have multiple OU access. That is that is not introduced in Fusion.
No, we have that. Okay, that's all about giving access to multiple BUs, right?
Yeah.
So in EBS what we do, we'll give the access to multiple operating units, that in a release 12. 11i we don't have that concept, right?
Yeah, in October we have, yeah.
Release 12 we give the access to multiple operating units to specific responsibility.
Yes.
Right? So in Fusion we don't have responsibility. Okay, play the responsibility role, we have a role, right? That means
Correct.
in Fusion we give the access to multiple business units to user through specific role. In EBS through responsibility, in Fusion through role. Same security profile or MOAC concept we have in Fusion also. In our classes also we are going to cover it.
Okay, that's fine.
Yep. Any questions here, please? We have 4 type of roles: job roles, duty roles, data roles, abstract roles. Job role is equal to EBS menu, duty role is equal to EBS submenu, data role is equal to this combination. Okay, so primary ledger will be assigned to responsible to user. Okay, this data role we assign to user basically. Abstract role, it is a common role, it's not specific to any application. Of course, employee definition can be used across all the application. Definition can be done in the HRMS as per EBS and Fusion, HCM, human capital management, but every application will be accessed by employees only as the users. So that is the reason the abstract role will assign to all the users who require the employee related privileges to specific data. So any questions here to understand these roles, please? Any question, please? Fine. No question.
Just one quick question, eh?
Please.
Just one quick question.
Yeah.
Do we have any column security to these pages?
Sorry, we have?
I'm saying, after you've assigned an employee a duty role, for example, for invoice creation, can you do any further detailed security after that? After invoice creation, on the page itself, on the form itself?
See, when you are assigning the invoice creation duty role to the user, directly you cannot assign. Against this, you have to create the job role. That job role will be assigning. So whatever
Like, for example, what I'm asking is,
yeah, please go ahead.
Are you able to like gray out some column and that particular page for invoice creation?
Specific column.
Yes.
So that you can do the personalization. Even in SaaS also you can in SaaS model also you can do the personalization, or else within the invoice creation for specific function. Say when you assign the invoice creation, system will give you the multiple privileges: invoice creation, importing the invoices, managing the invoices, okay, say correcting the invoices, different privileges the user will be getting. And if you want to restrict certain privilege, what we have to do is we take this duty role and will be creating the custom duty role. And in the custom duty role, you can remove what you don't want to give as access. If you want to add some additional privileges to the user, you can add it. It's all about, you can do the role customization. Through that you can manage as per your requirement.
Okay then. Okay.
Fine. Specific fields means that you can manage with the personalization. And specific actions means that those also you can manage within the duty role. Say for example, in our EBS payables, if you want to allow the users to do the invoice validation, so we have to enable allow online validation in the payable options, so that every user will be able to validate the invoices for specific operating in it. But in the Fusion, we don't have in that way. The validation privilege will be having within the role. If you delete validation privilege within that role, that user cannot see any validation. Here we are not going to manage at business unit level, same as EBS operating unit. That privileges also will be managed within the roles only. We'll see in our classes.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions here, please? Fine. Now the other point is, yes, we have a 4 type of roles. Okay, here just for information, job roles will be given by Oracle, and duty roles also will get from Oracle as a seeded. We get abstract roles, but data roles will be created by system. Okay, so when you create the business unit, automatically system will assign the business unit to the relevant subledger applications. And when you create the primary ledger, automatically primary ledger will be assigned to GL related roles. That means these 3 roles are seeded and data roles will be created in the system automatically. Okay, if you want to create the custom roles, you can create. You can create the custom job roles, custom duty roles, custom abstract roles, even custom data roles. This all you can create, but by default, these 3 are seeded. These will be created whenever you create the BU and primary ledger. Okay, this is a point we have to understand. So we have 4 roles. Okay, we have these 4 roles up to release 11. Up to release 11. In Fusion, we have a versions like this. Okay, 11.1. So there are many versions. 7.0.0. After that, next version Oracle released 11.1.8. Okay, 11 point, sorry, so 11.1.9, 11.1.10, 11.1.11, 11.1.12.0.0, and 11.1.13.0.0. Okay, this is how we have versions in Fusion applications. Just 1 second, let me correct this. Okay, this is how we have versions. So we know when you talk about EBS, the EBS, we have a 11i. Okay, within the 11i we have a many versions. Series is 11i. In the same way we have R12. In EBS 11i or R12 we have a different versions. When I talk about 11i, say 11.5.7, after that there are many versions. The last version Oracle ended, this 11i is 11.5.10.2. This is the last version in the 11i. The 11i series, this is the last version. When I talk about release 12, we have many versions. Okay, I'll take few. 12.1.3, okay, 12.2, 12.2.4, 12.2.56. This is how we have many versions. Okay, so here in 11i R12 we say 11i. The series only we are taking for version representation. And release 12, you can have we have many versions, 12.2.4, 12.2.6 we have. But in EBS release 12 also, we are taking the series only for versioning purpose. Okay, you might be knowing 11G means. So basically 11G is database version. Okay, for Fusion applications also they taken the version as 11G only. Fusion applications point of view, 11G means Fusion. Okay, 11G means application point of view, it refers the version of Fusion application. 11G database point of view, 11G means database version. The same way Fusion applications also they given the version as 11G only. You can look into the documentation, you can find it. Okay, fine. So the series is 11 and the actual version they are changing here. So if you see that any application version, Fusion application version with this version, this you should call as release 7. This version you call as release 8. This version you call as release 9. This is a value which will be considering as actual version. The series remain 11 only. Here this is a version specification. This is release 10, this is release 11, and this is release 12, this is release 13. But in case of EBS, the series only will be considering as version. Within that the subversioning will be discussing. We call as release 12, release 11i. But in the Fusion, if you are going to call release 12 or 13, don't think like the series will be 12 or 13. The series is 11. Within the 11, the version they are keep changing with enhancements or some bug fixing or some additional functionalities or module adaption. Okay, that's how they are changing. So now if you say release 12, the actual version name is 11.1.12.0.0. okay, so this is what we have to understand. Any questions here, please? Fine. Till release 11. Okay, till release 11. When you say release 11, this is what actually we should know. The release 11 means 11.1. This 11 only we consider as a release 0.0. Okay, so this is what we have to understand. So till release 11 we have 4 roles in the Fusion application. Okay, till, that means release 7, 8, 9, 10 up to 11 we have 4 roles. From release 12, okay, from release 12 onwards, when you say release 12, okay, the actual version is this. This is the 12 we have to consider as a release name. From release 12, Fusion release 12, we have only 3 type of roles, no data roles. So in up to release 11, in all the versions 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So whenever you create the business unit and primary ledger or inventory organization or any other organization, HR organization, automatically system will create the data roles. Because of that, there were many challenges. Because of that experience, they changed the concept called as the security model, how it works. So from release 12, we don't have any data roles concept. What we have to do is, okay, we have only this 3 roles: job roles, duty roles, abstract roles, equal to data roles. Manually we have to do the mapping. System won't assign BU primary ledger to the relevant roles, so we have to assign. So if you want to give the access to payables manager, so we have to assign BU to payables manager, and this will assign to user. So this is similar to our EBS, how we assign the profile options, set the profile option. So operating unit will assign to particular responsibility by using so and so profile option. Finally that responsibility will assign to the user. Okay, similar process will follow here. To assign the business unit to any role, we use the security contest. Basically the security contest the terms and all we see in the web applications when you provide the grants. That logic they introduced. But remember, from release 12 onwards, in release 12 or 13 we don't have data roles concept, only 3 type of roles we have. So in case of release 11 or 10 or 9, 7, 8, all this system creates the data roles, but from release 12 manually we have to assign the business unit to which roles the business unit is need to be mapped, and finally that we have to assign to the user. So just note this point, we have 3 type of roles, and the data roles we don't have from release 12. Any questions here, please? Fine, done. Now we'll talk about users in Fusion applications. Users in Fusion applications. When you talk about users in Fusion applications, basically users are classified into 2 types. You have a 2 type of users. Okay, we have a 2 type of users. One is implementation user, other one is employee user. Okay, implementation user and employee user. When you talk about implementation user, say you can create the user, and we'll talk about from where you can create the implementation user. You can create in the Fusion application from security console. Okay, implementation user you can create from security console. In EBS, from where we create the user? From system administrator responsibility. From system administrator we can create the user. Equal to that, in the Fusion you can create the implementation user from security console. Security console is similar to system administrator in EBS. Okay, and more detail level we'll see once we get into the application. And employee user you can create from HCM. HCM stands for Human Capital Management, which is equal to HRMS. Okay. In case of EBS, we can create the user only from system administrator. So what is the process we follow in EBS? We create user, and we assign employee to user. We create user, we assign employee to user. When that user is performing any transaction, system will identify which employee is doing all those activities. It look at what are the permissions, authorities that the employee has in terms of approvals and other aspects, right? So employee we assign to the user. So here in Fusion applications, if you are going to create implementation user from security console, you cannot assign employee to that implementation user. Say you created one user called as XYZ user, from where you are creating from security console. For this XYZ user, you cannot assign any employee. But if you create the user from HCM, okay, so if you create user from HCM, say you are creating ABC user from HCM, the ABC user definition itself employee. We create employee, for the employee will add the username, that only we call as employee user. So if you create the user from security console, for that user you cannot assign employee. If you are going to create user from HCM, the user definition itself employee, and for the employee only you provide the username, that definition only we call as employee user. So employee user you can create from HCM application, and implementation user you can create from security console, where you cannot assign employee to implementation user. If you want to create the employee user, okay, if you want to create the employee user, so sorry sorry so if you want to create the employee user, we need legal entity and business unit. Without selecting legal entity and business unit, you cannot create employee user. Okay, without selecting legal entity and business unit, you cannot create employee user. That is the reason what we do is, when we have access to fresh instance, so in the fresh instance we cannot find our legal entities and business units, right? We have to create whatever you require, we have to create. So in the fresh instance directly you cannot create employee user. That is the reason always we create implementation user from security console. With the help of implementation user, we do all the setups. Once we are ready with the legal entity and business unit, when you say legal entity and business unit, the primary ledger also should be ready, but that we don't select as a part of employee user creation. Okay, so what we do is, first, when you get access to fresh instance, we create implementation user from security console. Security console is equal to EBS system administrator. So what we can do within the security console, we'll be discussing those points, so when we reach that stage. Okay, for now just try to understand. We can create the implementation user from security console, but what are the user you are creating from security console, to that user you cannot assign the employee. If you want to create the employee user, okay, for the employee user, as a mandatory you have to select legal entity and business unit. That means in fresh instance directly you cannot create the employee user. For that reason what we do is, when you have access to fresh instance, first we create implementation user only. With the help of implementation user, we'll complete all the enterprise related definitions. Okay, primary ledgers, legal entities, business units, inventory organizations, and all will define. Once our legal entity and business units are ready, then we can create the employee user. So this user is connected with the employee. So when we are working on the application, what is the difference we can see between these two type of users? The first point we are discussing here, the implementation user cannot be associated with the employee. And when we are creating the employee user, we have to specify the employee will be working, okay, under which payroll. That payroll is connected to which legal entity. That point we'll discuss more detail level. For now, you try to understand for each employee definition, employee user definition, we have to address with the legal entity and business unit. So when you are working on the system, say you have a user A, say ABC, and you have a XYZ user. XYZ user is implementation user and the ABC user is employee user. Okay, with employee user, you can do all the setups, any setups you can do if there is some access to that user with the specific roles. Okay, so the employee user can do all the setups to implement the financials or any other application, but implementation user also can do all the setups except supplier side. Supplier sites can be created from employee user only. Again, there is a concept called as procurement agent, nothing but buyer. Those points we'll discuss once we get into the application. As of now, just very high level, just notice these points. So employee user we can create from HCM and implementation user from security console. So we cannot assign employee to implementation user. So when you talk about employee user definition itself employee plus user. So when you create the employee user, we have to assign legal entity and business unit. That is the reason in the fresh instance, we first will create the implementation user. With the help of implementation user, we will complete all the required setups. Then we will switch to employee user definition. So in the system point of in terms of behavior or privileges, what is the difference between employee user and implementation user? So implementation user cannot create supplier sites.
I have a question. Can I ask a question?
Please.
Yes. So being an employee user, can I do implementation setups?
Yes. See here, in EBS, if you want to do the implementation configuration, what responsibility you require?
System admin, and basing on system admin, I keep adding all the other responsibilities.
Just system administrator responsibility. Similar to system administrator responsibility, here we have one role. If you assign that role to any user, that user will be able to do the setups. That's it. The user can be employee user or implementation user. For any user, you can assign the role, through which role we can do the system configuration. Okay. Any user can do the setups if you give the access to specific role. That is the point. Fine.
But primarily from user standpoint of view, what is that major transactional difference between implementation user and employee user? So like say if an implementation user can do certain transactions versus only the supplier side, or is there anything like a transactional control for implementation of the employee user?
Yeah. See, the first point is we cannot create employee user. That is the reason we have to start with the implementation user. And when it comes to your question, the transactional differences, no, we don't have in case of finance. In SCM side, only employee user only can perform the documents. Requisitions, purchase orders, agreements, and all can be created by employee user only. Implementation user cannot create. When it comes to finance, only the challenges with the supplier sides. Rest all can be managed from implementation user also with respect to finance.
So documents means that, for example, like creating invoices, for example.
No.
Like
that's what I mentioned. Documents in purchasing. I'm not saying just documents. Documents in purchasing. Only purchasing documents, not finance related invoices or payments. Within the finance, in payables, receivables, assets, and all the finance application, okay, implementation user also can create and process any transactions. There won't be any restriction. Only supplier sites cannot be created from implementation user. What happens, why we cannot create the supplier site from the implementation user? Say you have a user called as XYZ. You are trying to create the supplier site. What system will do is, whether this user is procurement agent or not, it will verify. Nothing but buyer.
Buyer.
Okay. When any user is trying to create the supplier site, system will look for this user is procurement agent or not. Okay. System will look for that. If you want to create any user as a procurement agent, first of all, that user should be created as an employee user. So only employee user can be converted as a procurement agent. The procurement agent user only can create supplier site. So you have XYZ implementation user. Okay. So implementation user you cannot create as a procurement agent. Only employee user can be classified as a procurement agent. So that is the reason employee user only can create supplier site. Say you have a 10 employee users. 10 employee users can create supplier sites? No. How many employee users are classified as a procurement agents? Those employee users only can create supplier site. This is the point we have to understand here. Okay. Any questions, please?
LAXMAN, Prakash here.
Yeah.
So LAXMAN, for example, I have created one implementation user called LAXMAN. Okay, then now I wanted to create employee user once I created the legal entity and business unit. But I wanted to create employee user also LAXMAN only. They're the same person.
No. See what?
Okay, so I'm just thinking. Yeah, I'm just thinking at database level. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, please.
So what happens? Whatever you create as implementation user and employee user, the two definitions will flow to security console only. So that if you create, see, first you are creating LAXMAN as employee implementation user. Later, if you create LAXMAN as employee user, okay, so that it won't flow to security console. You cannot find as a user. So you have to make sure that, okay, you are just going with the proper definition. The username, see, users you can create, login names you can make as a different. See, in the organization you can have with the same name there could be some employees, but login names, username you have to define separate. Here when you are creating a login name, you given for implementation user as a LAXMAN. But for employee, when you are creating employee name may be LAXMAN, but with the same username, the implementation user name is already existed. You have to give some different login name for this employee user.
Okay, so see, as per my understanding, like, see, same person have two different access for as an implementation user and employee user, correct?
Yes. See, you can create employee user. As we take an example here, you can create ABC user as an employee user. To ABC user, you can assign the role, which role is required to do the implementation. Here, why we are calling as implementation user? So when we start with the implementation, we cannot create the employee user. That is the reason for implementation purpose, we create the user from security console. That is the reason we are calling as implementation user. Just if you create one user from security console, you cannot do anything. You have to assign the role. See, I'll create the EBS user called as consultant. I'll create a user called as consultant. Just because of this name, can I do the configuration? No. If I assign the responsibility called as system administrator, then only I can do the configuration. I'll create one more user called as employee. Usernames in system administrator in EBS. I'll create these two. Now my question is, employee user can do the system configuration? Anyone?
If he has access to implementation user,
No,
then he
no.
can do the
No,
configuration.
I am talking about EBS.
Oh, okay.
These are two users which I created, just users. Okay, who can do the implementation? Tell me here.
Who has access to sysadmin
That's it.
responsibility?
That's it. Here also we have a employee user and implementation user who has access to specific role. Which role will give the access to do the implementation? That user can do the implementation. In case of EBS, system administrator responsibility is required. Equal to that, in the Fusion we have a separate role. We are going to discuss that point also. Okay, so far any questions, please?
So just for creating the purchase orders, I would need an employee user. So in that case, instead of maintaining two users, once I create the implementation user and then I create an employee user, I can assign the role to the employee user as an implementation consultant, and then I can use
Correct.
one user for all the
No, no.
transactions.
Implementation role you can assign to employee user. The employee user will be able to do the implementation.
Okay.
Yep.
And I still can create purchase orders at that time.
Yeah, if user is employee user, then you can do
Yeah.
it. But because of just employee user, you cannot create the purchase orders. The employee user you have to create as a procurement. Then only you can, from that user, you can create the supplier sites as well as you can create the some procurement related documents.
Okay, good.
Yep. So this is the point. And there are few more other points which we have to understand when we talk about procurement agent. So when we create the procurement agents and supplier definition, at the time we'll talk on that. Fine. Any other questions from anyone, please? Fine. So when you have access to fresh instance, okay, so we have to start our implementation with implementation.
One last question. I have just a question.
Please.
Suppose if I'm an implementation user and I would like to say create a purchase order or do the supplier side creation like how buyer does, right? In current in Oracle EBS, what we do is we simply assign ourselves an employee on the user level, right? And that employee happens to be say a buyer. So I just assign that employee to my user ID, and that's all I start. I can
Correct.
basically go ahead and do the purchasing. So now here I can't do that. So in a sense, if I have to test anything to do with purchasing, I will have two user IDs.
Exactly. Employee IDs. Yep.
ID and implementation.
Yes.
Right?
Right. Okay. Yeah. So what we do in EBS that you cannot do in the Fusion respective to this employee.
Even
just one quick question.
I have access to the roles, the functional setup manager role.
Karthik, if possible, can you be a bit loud? I can hear you, but may not be clear to everyone.
Even I have access to functional setup manager role. Being an implementation user, I still cannot create a purchase order or do the supplier sites, right?
Exactly. Until unless the user is okay, not a procurement agent, you cannot perform all those. Even you have access to through role. Yeah, that's true. Any other questions here, please?
Just one question.
Yeah.
One question, huh?
Please.
Does it mean that if you're subscribing for these particular features in Oracle Fusion, you have to purchase HCM?
Yeah. The point is
HCM is a compulsory.
No, not compulsory. So the shared functions. Okay, when we work on finance, there will be some dependency setups which you have to do in HRMS as per Fusion HCM and SCM side. Those dependent setups all would be available without having any license.
Okay, perfect. And another quick question, huh?
Yeah.
Second question: can an employee user access the security console?
Any user can have access.
Okay, perfect.
You have access to security console. We have one role. If you assign that role to any user can access to that.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. We are going to touch those points also. Okay. So we'll wind up this discussion maybe within 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah. Is it
Any other
possible to see
question?
the data?
Ravi, your
Is it
voice is
possible?
very low.
Is it possible to see the data? Means the
Which
view
data?
axis at least. Means this data, what are the base tables are affecting all those things?
Yes, we can see. We'll be covering that also in our classes. I mentioned in the course curriculum. So we'll go and
Those
write
are
some
stored
SQL
or
queries and we'll fetch the data and we'll see.
oh.
Yep, we'll do that. Any questions here, please? Fine. Fine. Now we'll see if you are going to create implementation user. Okay, you want to create implementation user. So say you given the name as, say username is cloud implemented. Okay, the username you created as a cloud implemented. For this user, okay, for this user, which roles we have to assign? Okay, which roles we have to assign? The roles are, one is application implementation consultant, other one is IT security manager, the third one is employee. So just these three roles we have to assign to user so that we'll be able to do all the setups. So with the application implementation consultant role will give the access to configuration. You know, in EBS, so module specific setups will do from particular responsibility only, particular application. But in Fusion, any application related configuration you can do from ASM. Let me write in this way. So application implementation consultant role will give the access to ASM. ASM stands for application setup manager. ASM, application setup manager. For any application related configuration you can do from ASM. So with the help of ASM, you can do the application related configuration. For any user need access to ASM to do the implementation related setups, we have to assign application implementation consultant role to that user so that that user we can connect it to ASM to do the configuration. Why we have to assign IT security manager role to the user? If you assign IT security manager role to any user, that user can have access to security console. With the security, within the security console, what user can do? User can create the new users and they can reset the password and they can assign the roles to user, and the user can create custom roles. There are many other points to understand. We'll see that. So what is the use of IT security manager? The IT security manager will allow the users to access security console. From security console we can create the new users and you can manage the existing users, you can assign the roles to the users and you can create the custom roles as per business requirement. And what is the use of employee? Okay, self-service access. And this user, if you assign the role called as employee role already we discussed as abstract role. If assign this employee abstract role to any user, that user can have a self-service access for the information which is related to employee, as well as that user can run the reports. In EBS directly you can access to SRS window, view request find. You can go with that navigation, but in Fusion until unless you assign this employee role, you cannot have access to that similar environment to submit the reports. So these are the three basic roles which you have to assign to implementation user so that that user can start working on the configuration. Once we are ready with legal entity and business unit, then we can create employee user Okay, say employee user you may create as a cloud employee, and for that employee also you can assign these 3 roles. Then this employee user will start acting as a implementation consultant. The definition point of employee user, but the access point of view, what are the access is cloud implementation user. The implementation user will be having, because of these roles, the same privileges this employee user will be having. On top of it, this employee user can create the supplier sites also in terms of configuration. In terms of process, this employee user can create the purchasing documents and requisitions. Any questions here, please?
I have a question here.
Please.
Could you hear me?
Yeah, Prakash, please.
Yeah. Say like you are saying in the employee assignment, the self-service access and run report access will be given from that. Say, let's say one employee has both the GL and AP roles. Okay, and when you say run reports, they can run by module, or they will be seeing all reports together?
Yeah, I got your question. The user will have access to the panel from where you can run the reports. In EBS also, the user can say you have a responsibility, you don't have any request group within your responsibility, but still can you access to SRS window or not?
Yeah.
Yes. If you have any
Okay, got it. I got it. Yeah.
Okay, just it will take you to that page. If it is not taking to that page, even you have a access, you cannot run it. That is the point we are trying to address here. So any questions here, please? Any questions? Fine. No questions. So what we'll do in the tomorrow session is, okay, maybe for 30 minutes we'll have some few other points we'll be discussing to understand. Then we'll just directly we can jump into the instance. We'll create the implementation user and we'll create the project. We'll be discussing. There are few points still we have to understand before we start with instance. In tomorrow session we'll be starting with instance. We'll see how to create the implementation user. Before that, there are few more points we have to understand that we'll discuss and we'll proceed. Any questions from today's session related to this course? You can come up with questions we can discuss.
Prakash here.
Yes, Prakash.
So Lakshman, we have 2 Prakash, I think, in
Yeah,
this.
no issues. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So can you just share the course curriculum with me and yesterday's record, so I will go through it today.
Yeah, I'll do that. We'll be sharing with everyone.
Yeah.
Okay. Even we shared already. We'll be sharing once again to all. So including the today's session video. We'll do that.
Yeah. Please.
You may expect within 1 hour. You can expect within 1 hour.
Yeah, that's
video need to be converted into right format.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Prakash, this is Ravi here. So do you provide any reference material apart from this, like any kind of books or something, or reference material where we can go through?
The point is, so whatever we are going to discuss, it is a summary of lot of information that we know anyway. But if you within the Fusion applications, Oracle given very great help repository. Okay, in EBS you can go to form, you can click on help, it will open that just form related help page, right? But in the Fusion totally they changed. Okay, that lot of help information, documents you can find, videos you can find, FAQs you can find, lot of information you can find within the Fusion application only. I'll take you through that process, how to get that information. Apart from that, if you want, I can provide some student guides for finance. But reality, if you go through these classes, you'll be getting whatever you required. Still, if you want to explore, you have help. Even we have a just public help where you can go through that Oracle Fusion help URL. There you can get a lot of information.
But Lakshman,
please.
Do you share any configuration documents, like in EBS we have BR100 and all, right? I mean, like whatever you're typing or any documentations or any documents you guys share from ERPTree?
No configuration documents will be sharing. So we'll be providing that kind of student guides. There you can see some sort of configuration also, what we are doing in the system, but may not be asked is how we are doing. So only the point is, see, just when we are running through the classes, you may make very high level note, and in the classes everything is recorded, and when you play, you may get to know all those information. So no kind of documents.
Lakshman, like in EBS, we know about the AI methodology and unified methodology, right? So likewise, for the fusion, did Oracle recommended any kind of a documentation approach?
So for fusion also we use OEM only. Okay, OEM methodology only we use for fusion implementations. Like, so Oracle recommends, but it's all about the practice decision, what method they want to proceed. They can use OEM or else they can go with their own methodology. But that is the latest from Oracle. We use OEM only. There is no separate methodology, especially for this fusion. Because you know very well why Oracle introduced OEM, because Oracle acquired many products and a lot of middleware integrations and configurations to be able to capture that sort of very complex different third-party application integrations and the middleware connectivities and all to support best. To support all those only Oracle introduced OEM, right? So the same documentation we can use for our functional aspect of implementation also.
But Lakshman, if we want to get subscription to cloud instance, is there anything as such like how we have EBS Vision instance with the preloaded configuration and preloaded data? Is there anything similar for cloud, or is it like fresh instance where you have to build everything from scratch?
For partners, Oracle provides Vision instance. Okay. And if you want to have your own instance in the server and all, it's not possible. It's not possible because it got too much of server capacity is required in terms of RAM and hard disk. So for partners, Oracle will provide. They'll provide one instance if they have a cloud practices as a partnership.
But whatever you provide, Lakshman, does it have any data? The instance access you give?
Yes.
Any vision data?
That whatever the instance I'll be sharing, that is a vision instance. You can have some sample data, but in our classes we are not going to touch the data even that is there. We treat this instance as a fresh instance. In fresh instance, how we do the setups from scratch, everything will be doing, because this is a vision instance. There may be some points, there may be some cases where, because already this is a vision, so and so setup is completed, that sort of setups also I'll be touching. So because there should be information for you when you work on the fresh instance. So fresh instance based configuration will be doing in this vision instance.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So Lakshman, this is Ravi here. So this initial two months training, you said, right? Till 2 months we are allowed to access your vision instance, or we will have some more time to access the vision instance. Like how long we can able to access yours?
So you can have access for 3 months. After 3 months also, if you need access for 1 more month or 2 more months, we can extend. Yep.
Okay.
Yes. Any other questions from anyone?
So Lakshman, like if I have to create some data, let's say I have to create some items, would I have any access to sample data kind of thing from Oracle?
When you say item, you are referring inventory item or some technical kind of object?
I mean like creating items. Let's say I need to create some items, but I can create items though, but I can create a limited number of items, not similar to the vision instance. Is there something like that provided by Oracle? Probably the Excel sheet which can be loaded.
Sample data we have, and in our classes we'll be covering the P2P cycle. I'll take you through the basic inventory configuration, how to create the item, how to assign to inventory organization, how to use that item in the PO requisition, PO creation, that also I'll be covering. On top of it, if you want to explore more, yes, to load the mass volume of the data, we have a templates for item templates Oracle is providing. Okay, I'll take you through how to load our finance related data. Based on that, you will be able to follow the same practice, and you can do for other set of data which is related to OM or purchasing or inventory also. If you are interested, you
Okay.
proceed with that. So whatever we will be finding in our classes, that would be enough to explore on other modules related data loading process.
Okay, thank you.
The process remains same. The records will be different. That's all.
Yeah.
Yes.
Lakshman, question regarding the technical take again. So in R12, when we do any conversion activities or any interfaces, right, we experience performance issues, performance problems and all. So likewise, in Fusion also, do we encounter that kind of scenario, like, running an explain plan, a TK prof to debug performance tuning part we are talking about in EBS?
The performance issues and all, basically it comes because of the coding, the programming. So the coding is very much optimized and all. There may not be performance issues. If you have a large volume of the data, you may have a plan of loading, okay, the scheduled manner, right? Here, this loading process will support for very large volume of the data. Okay, so whatever the database or instance level, whatever the resource required to execute that process, so that by default they set. So even if you are going to load very large volumes of the data through this data conversions, maybe suppliers or customers or open transactions, you don't come across any issues. So that this Oracle will take care of it. These instances will support for any volume of the data. Okay, but because the process they streamlined with the as a functional task, so you don't see any issues.
So if at all there are any errors when I'm loading the data, let's say if something gets stuck, so the only way is to raise a service request and talk to.
No, when we are loading the data in case of EBS, what we do is, so you will write some exceptions, so that will capture what are the reasons why the data is not able to load into interface, or else you got you populated data into interface, you are trying to import into base tables, and automatically for that you don't need to write any exceptions. So within the application itself, so system can generate the message why it is the execution report can give the information. So the same mechanism we have here. When you are trying to see, you have a data, so you have 1,000 suppliers in the sheet. That sheet you are loading into, so open interface of supplier. So if any record is going to get failed, what is the reason that is getting failed? Also, system will generate the report log file, so you can go through it and you can correct. And you say you have a data in the interface, when you are trying to import, it's not getting through. So what are the reasons? Also, it will generate the report. And even once data is available, say you have a data in the payables open invoice interface. So what are the data you have? What are the errors you have in the interface? You can go and see. That's how they're given the flexibility that you can see those errors which are there in the payables open invoice interface when you are loading the payables data, open invoices data through spreadsheet. Through spreadsheet you can access. Total data will be fetched into spreadsheet. Within the spreadsheet you can correct and you can resubmit from there itself. We'll see all these.
Okay.
Lakshman, I have a question. This is Ravi again. So I worked with one of a client in
yeah, Ravi, if you don't mind, one second, please. Sorry to interrupt you. So we're done with the session. Okay, if you have any questions, you can stay back in this meeting, or else you can drop from the meeting for today. We'll connect tomorrow, same time, and in tomorrow's session we can start with instance. Okay, thank you all. Yeah, Ravi, now you can go ahead with your question.
Yeah. See, in R12, when the client is like using a Fusion middleware, and when the partner connect to R12, the bridges between the Fusion middleware. Fusion middleware takes the file from the partner and send it to the R12 is a synchronous response, and in return, the asynchronous process will work. So synchronous and asynchronous process works in between. The Fusion middleware is going to take care of that. in receiving and for the inbound and outbound activities.
Correct.
So when I try to replicate the same thing in cloud, how is this cloud getting embedded there, so that the partner can able to communicate to the cloud by sending the data and receiving the data in terms of synchronous and asynchronous?
Yeah, see, synchronization is the program where we'll have a LDAPs, lightweight directory access protocols. That is a directory service synchronization. So what happens in Fusion applications, whatever the role you assign, whatever the process you do, that all has to be, the grants and privileges need to be synchronized, okay, with the data process, primarily the privileges as well as data process that can be taken care by directory services. Okay, that is a part of middleware. That is one of the middleware component. Through the directory services, the synchronization takes place. So here also, if you are going to have any third-party integrations and everything, that has to pass through middleware, and there will be control where data can be processed through the directory services related privileges what will be setting. Even within the Fusion applications also, if you are doing something, so for some user you given some roles, and for the role you just map to some business unit or primary ledger, because just you assign, it won't work. That information need to be synchronized, means that need to be updated again in the LDAP directories. However, the data is synchronized and updated as per LDAP directories. Based on that only, the user will have a provision access to anything to do within the Fusion application.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Just everything will happen with the connectivity of middleware, maybe within the just Fusion cloud, or if you are going to integrate this Fusion cloud with third-party applications, or if somebody is going to use the middleware component, even they may not use cloud and they may have middleware. Even in EBS also you can see they introduce middleware. So but they didn't go with the concept of that directory service and synchronization that is there only in the Fusion. So that's what we have to understand. Any questions here, please? If no questions, we can wind up. We will connect tomorrow.
Yeah.
Please.
Lakshman, this Excel sheet, can you please save it and send it across?
No. I'm sorry, because this sheet, whatever I'm using for classes, I'm not going to share. This is just for class discussions only. If you think something is required, you can make a note. Maybe I'll be sharing this course entire video. Okay, if you think that information required, you may make a screenshot and you can save it if you think that is required.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, sure.
Lakshman, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes. I think Sri is speaking.
Yes, Sri. Yes. Actually, I have a question for you offline. Is it okay to talk now?
Then better we can discuss offline, and maybe after this meeting. Okay, after ending this meeting, we will give you a call, or else you can call us. We can talk on that.
Okay, I'll call you on that. The 888-96.
Yeah. On what number you are in touch with our guys, you can call on that.
Oh.
What is your full name? What's your full name, Sri? Sorry? No, I don't.
Lakshman, this is Bhargavi.
Yeah, please.
Hey, I was just considering between this class session or the buying the other option, which is like the previous session videos.
Okay.
Is there any difference in the content, or is it the same content?
No difference. Same.
Okay. Because yesterday I remember that you're saying that this batch or this session is having some updated contents compared to the videos online, that recorded videos. So just want to make sure whether they're the same or if there is any difference.
Yes, you are right. See, what we did is the course content we didn't update, but all the concepts what we updated in the course content that we executed in the previous batch also.
I'm sorry, I didn't get the question.
No.
I mean,
what? See, we shared some updated course content, right?
Yeah, that's what you mentioned yesterday, right?
whatever the course content we updated for this batch, for previous batch also the same course content I executed without updating the course content. The same
Okay.
I covered.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the videos that are available is exactly the same as what you are going to teach in this batch, right?
Exactly. This course content you can compare with that batch videos, everything you find in that. And one more point is, if you go with that videos, if you are interested, even you can get this batch videos also, if you want.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yes.
Okay then. Because I'm thinking of that option because when you change that time, it would clash with my work hours. I'm from USA, by the way.
Okay.
So yeah, just thinking about that. So
okay.
Yeah.
You can go with that. You won't miss anything. You won't find any difference. Okay.
Okay.
You'll get everything.
Okay.
So Lakshman, in terms of price part,
yeah, please. I think Ravi. Yeah, Ravi is speaking.
That's okay. Prakash can go ahead.
Yeah, anyone, please.
Lakshman, we are planning to change the timings of the
yes
daily session.
Now we'll be running this 8 to 9:30, maybe for 3 to 4 weeks, and later we will be preponing to 6 or 6:30.
Yeah. Oh, early morning is fine for me. That's fine. No problem.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks.
So 6:30 IST.
Yes.
6:30 IST.
Yes, you are right. 6:30 IST.
Okay, then. I think that is better. Okay, then perfect.
Yeah. Fine. Any other questions, please?
Lakshman, I just wanted to update you. I probably my name is not in the mailing list. I did not get yesterday's video.
Shravan, okay. Fine. Just see. Now I shared meeting link, right? That means the same list we used, the same list of email IDs we used to share the videos also. Okay. Anyway, once again today we'll be sharing.
Okay.
I'll check why you didn't receive yesterday.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
So Lakshman, the pre-recorded videos you said, if we buy those videos, right?
Yeah.
So if we buy those videos, so still we can able to join the online classes, or both are separate online classes with the videos each time, or buying a set of videos and that is a separate thing. How is it actually?
Not both are separate, both are same. So if you subscribe the videos, okay, you can continue in this batch also. If not this batch, next batch, based on your availability. And you'll be getting this batch videos also if you want.
So will it be a server kind of thing that you're going to share, so that you're putting all those videos and so that we can just save it?
I'll just keep in the drive and I'll be sharing. You can download into your machine. You can download. You can keep with you permanently.
Okay, so it has all the classes, class 1 till class whatever it is, right?
Yes.
Step by step.
Yeah, all the classes we have.
And each class, let's say for example, you for this batch, you are having by the time you completed 2 months, let's say you have 50 videos. So if I compare the video one of this with another batch, is it the same content I can able to see, or is it the matter wise there will be some kind of ups and downs, like adding more and something like that?
No. You can see same when you compare with the previous batch. When you compare with
the material,
the
material is same. The material is same.
Back batch, maybe you can see some latest, some updates within that. But when you compare with the previous batch, you don't see any difference. Same. Yeah. Fine. Seems to no questions. We can wind up the session for today. We'll connect tomorrow same time and we'll see how to create the user, and we'll discuss few other points which we should understand before we proceed with that. Okay. So that's all for today. Thank you all. See you tomorrow. Have a good day and good night.
Thanks, Lakshman. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks.